Hello, GSD. This is Shannon Steer. I am with one of my most favorite people in the world today. Her name is Leann Harris. And Leann and I had the opportunity to coach together many, many moons ago. And Leann is in the Airbnb business. Now, in our GSD, Leann, we've been kind of having some conversations about Airbnbs and who all has Airbnbs. So, first of all, I want you to start with a little bit about your real estate history. And then, how did you get started into Airbnbs?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And I always say that some of the best realtors out there are people that have worked in the worked in the restaurant or retail business. Have you ever noticed that? It's like if you can deal with that level of customer service, you usually can be this great real estate agent. So flashback to my early 20s, we opened up one of the hottest nightclubs in Portland. We used to have a line around the block and we did an amazing job. It was called Moody's here in Portland, and we had such a fun time, but it was a nightclub in Portland. And with that money, we were able to start flipping houses. So my first experience really got into like the flipping of houses, but I always understood the hospitality side on the side. And then I bought my first commercial property with my husband during that time. And it just, my real estate career kind of evolved from there. So I've been doing this for about 25 years, where I've worked really in flipping and title and escrow, all of those things. So just to kind of come to the second part of your question, I think that the hospitality industry, and then I was a manager at Nordstrom, like all of this parlayed into, I still like the hospitality part of real estate. It just makes it an easy, like you understand Airbnbs when you've had that background.
So when did you start getting into Airbnbs?
So yeah, I started that in 2016, and I bought my first property really because, and I say this in my classes all the time, it's like the American dream to buy your second home, to buy your beach house. I had kind of got to that place where I was like, okay, I'm going to get risky and I'm going to buy a second home. And I bought the second home, but realized I really couldn't be there during the week. And so why wasn't I letting somebody else enjoy this beautiful ocean view? And I took pictures of it with my iPhone and put it online, and I got a booking within, 15 minutes of me putting it live. And I was like, wow, okay, well, we're going to see how this goes. And of course it became just exciting after that. And yeah.
So how many Airbnbs do you own now?
So I have two down at the coast that I'm operating at a really high level, like back to back to back. One in Palm Springs that runs kind of like 30-day rentals. A lot of Canadian snowbirds will come into the Palm Springs area. So it's not flipped as fast, where the other ones are like 1-day rentals. And then we have some long-term rentals in the trust that we have for our family, for our kids.
Okay. So talk to me about your class. Like at some point you're like, okay, I've got to go teach other people how to do this.
Yeah. So it obviously started with all of the mistakes on the first one that I launched, where I was taking pictures with my iPhone. And what I realized was, as soon as I started cranking out money, I was so excited about it. I was just like, this is amazing. I want other people to be able to do this. Because let's just go back to the back end story of this. I was a single mom. I didn't have a secondary income. I didn't understand how to build wealth. I was working in a job where I was getting a paycheck, but I wasn't sure exactly how to leverage that money. I didn't understand equity back then. So for me, when I launched my Airbnb and I made about, I think my first year, my net income off of that Airbnb was about $45,000. So to me, I had a second job that created a $45,000 net. And I was like, oh, I can do this and teach other people how to do it. But when I get excited about something, I tell everybody, right? So I started getting calls from across the US saying, hey, Leann, will you teach? Can you answer a question on this? Can you help me with this? And I was like, I realized how much people needed to understand how to leverage and how to do their Airbnbs. And so I wrote a class so that it would just make it super easy and I could put people into the course.
Yeah. So you have an online class.
AirBNBandU.com, spelled
Okay,
out.
Airbnb.
Yeah, with ANDU, the letter U. So AirBNBandu.com. And we're doing classes all the time. We're going to be having a Zoom class that's going to be put up there. People can go there and learn how to host and learn how to invest. And also, it'll tell people when they shouldn't invest and make it an Airbnb. They should make it a long-term rental. And I try to help people with that part too.
So we got a condensed version at the Upward event in about 2 hours. And I will tell you, I think I had a writer's cramp after that because I wrote down so many tips and tricks, things like discounts, which I'm not going to disclose here because you have to take the class to learn that, because that one like blew my head. I was like, what? I had no idea I could save that much money. And people are like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive to go to her class. It's $150. I'm like, do you understand that she just saved me about 10 grand a year or more and how to buy furniture? Holy crap. Right?
Or even just like a client. You should get a client out of taking my class. You should get multiple clients just from saying, hey, I understand Airbnbs and I'm certified to be able to help you with this, or whatever you want to say. Like, you should be making tens of thousands of dollars off of just the information I'm giving out to realtors.
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine if you went to your sphere, right, and said, okay, if you guys are thinking about rentals, we're going to do a class on Airbnbs and kind of just either send them to your class or do here's how to invest in an Airbnb and here's some basics. How many of your sphere can you now help build wealth and increase your real estate sales all at the same time? That's what I just heard you say.
Yeah. And I got to tell you too, it's super funny. I connected at that same event, such an amazing person. I connected with this lady that is selling real estate out of the Chicago area, and she only deals with investors, right? Well, here's the thing with those investors is they are always looking for a deal, and they're great because you can set them up for the whole year. But what she did is she opened up a whole other portfolio to people that were like me, who just had equity in their original house and just want to have a side income. So this is a little bit of a different than the traditional investing. And people want to understand that. I mean, there's people out there, I'm sure in your database too, Shannon, like they want to go buy into a franchise, let's say, okay? And we know a typical franchise, people are making about $70,000 a year. Why don't I show you how to make money on top of money on top of money and also get that $70,000? And you have equity? I'm like, come on, let's start a new business, right?
Well, and when you said earlier, that you netted 45 or 40,000 the first year, how fast can you now pay off a property versus it being long-term rental?
Yeah.
So that's where my head went to. I've bought 3 properties this year, 2 long-term, 1 for an Airbnb. And had I known then on the third one, before I bought the third one, had I known all about the Airbnb, which I learned actually a little bit in my office investment class and in your class, I would probably never buy another long-term rental.
Yeah.
Because of the payoff time. I mean, and now I'm in for the long-term, right? I'm in for the quick payoff, like a 5 to 7 year payoff versus a 15-year payoff or a 30-year payoff. And then it's just pure cash flow.
Yeah. And it's different for every person and where they're at and what their goals are. For me, it's about profitability on the month. So what I want is I want every single piece of property to cash flow a certain dollar amount. Big investors that have hundreds of doors of properties, they say, I want $500 a door cash flow. And that's what they go for. I'm looking for at least $2,000 cash flow on my Airbnbs if I'm going to open them up like that. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to me because I won't crank it out as much. And it is a second business. And so there's a difference, long-term rentals, you can kind of put someone in there and leave it and you don't have to think about it. And that's good sometimes. But if you want another business and you want another cash flow, man, this works.
Where do you see Airbnb going in the future, Leann?
So I talk about this in my course, but I love giving out this information. There's a book called The Inevitable, and we really are in a place where being able to, I mean, we've seen it, we're hearing about it in the news every single day that this is the big resignation, right? You hear this on the news. It's the big resignation. Everybody's leaving their jobs. Well, people are leaving their jobs in droves for a multitude of reasons. They want freedom. They want to see other sites. They don't want to be locked down anymore after the pandemic. They want to have this movement. And so what ends up happening is a person might be going to a new city. They don't want to commit to buying a property. They don't want to commit to a 6-month lease, and they don't want to move all their furniture there and say, what if they don't like it? What if they hate that city? So they can literally pick up their laptop, go into a city, rent an Airbnb for 30, 35 days, and then say, skip this. I don't like, Newport, Oregon. I want to go down the way. And so you're seeing the big resignation. You're seeing a lot of people being able to work independently and remotely. And I think that means that the short-term rental business is only going to continue skyrocketing. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, we're still talking about the fact that next year we're going to see another 15% increase in the nation in real estate. And if that is in fact the truth, what does that mean for people buying into the business? Does it mean people are still locked out, like they sell their house and they want to buy another house? Where do I stay? You just gonna stay in an Airbnb during that time. We'll go find you your perfect house, right?
Yep. And they don't want to go to a hotel because they have kids and they want to be able to cook and they want to be healthy and they want to have a backyard and they want to sit outside. And I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
it's so good. I mean, I just wish that every realtor owned their own short-term rental just for their clients. Put your client in there, go sell them a house next month,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you're in the new construction world, right? I mean, shoot, you could get people in for 2, 3, 4 months.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. It's so good. I mean, I think furnished rentals too, there's just such a market for it. And I don't want to give away everything, but there's so many different reasons why people need a furnished rental. And where a lot of people feel is like, so all of my rentals are all furnished, but some of them are long-term and some of them are short-term. So I want to go back on that. When I say Airbnb, I mean the one-day rentals are only going on in a couple units. But people need furnished rentals. And I think it's a really good idea to have one of those. And I think it makes a lot of money and it's a much higher margin and it is a business. You have to monitor it. So,
right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts with an Airbnb versus a long-term rental. I mean,
yes.
Short-term rentals are way different. And there are people out there that run those too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we have a company here in Kansas City. It's a flat fee. Okay. I don't want to deal with it. I don't have time to deal with it.
Leverage
However,
it off. Yeah.
I'm really happy to let somebody else do that and make me money and get me on Superhost and do all the other fancy things that I don't want to go have a learning curve to do.
Right.
Don't care.
Agree. Yeah.
What other tips and tricks would you give somebody? So if I'm a realtor and I'm thinking, how do I save enough money to go buy an Airbnb? And how much does it really cost me to get into one? I mean, it's 20 to 25% down, right?
Depends. So, and of course I think your lender has to answer a lot of these questions for you. But if it is your second home and you might consider renting it out, you can get away with I've heard 10% down on a second home. So it just kind of depends how you would get into that. Everybody has a different financial picture. People have kids, people don't have kids, whatever. But yes, you might need 25% down on your next home. If it's going to be 100% of an investment, or if it's close by, you can get away with it being a second home if it's further out. So yeah, I mean, the way that I also think that people should start putting together LLCs and just pooling their money. I wish people would just start making that normal. Pool your money, create LLCs, go buy some houses.
Get a few couple friends who would never have an issue over money.
Yeah.
Everybody put in 30 grand and let's go make some money together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
What do you know an average of what it would cost to furnish a place to get it ready for Airbnb? Like if it's a little 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
Yep. So 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I always try to say like you're going to spend and it also depends on how fancy you're going to get. And I really do tell people to diversify. Like, please don't decorate your entire place like IKEA. It makes me crazy. You know, you can buy an IKEA couch because they're really nice, but then you should probably have some different furniture that's moved in there. I love to shop on Overstock. I like IKEA for a couple things, especially like kitchen stuff and just, you know, accessories like that, dishes that'll get broken and replaced. And I like Overstock because it has some good prices, but then I think you can throw in some nice art that might cost you a little bit more. And I would say, you know, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, you can get in as low as $7,000 to furnish the whole place. I think that that's a good number, but it also depends on, you know, how much you're doing.
Yeah. I also heard you say at your class that mattresses were important.
Very. So I spend somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500 on my mattresses, and for the queen mattresses, and more if they're kings. But I won't spend anything less than 1,000. And I don't mean like I'm not shopping for a bargain. Of course, I'm always looking out there like what's on sale. But I replace my mattresses every 2 years in my units. So
with really good ones,
yeah.
No cheap. I mean, I stay at Hilton's because I love their sheets, I love their mattresses, and I love their pillows.
Yep. Yep. I think it is important to have different types of pillows too. Like some people like feather pillows, some like plain, like all this stuff. Like I get into the nitty gritty during the class, but it's true. It's like you really are appealing to, you have to appeal to the masses. And I get more 5-star reviews based on how great the bed is. It just makes me laugh. I'm like, okay. I had a lady this weekend. She said that she was like, okay, our first night went great. And I just want to thank you for having a great mattress. We haven't had such great experiences elsewhere. And I'm like, yeah. So, and 5-star reviews are really the lifeline of your business and also the lifeline of a real estate agent's business, right? And so I kind of identified that's the one thing, like you go big on a mattress and people just love it.
Yeah. What else do people really look at in their reviews? Like what else pops up that you're like, what in the world?
Okay. People got mad because I had dull knives. There was a knife sharpener in there, but apparently they could not be bothered with sharpening their own knife. So dull knives will, I don't know, like, I don't have this problem, but I've seen it with other Airbnb hosts. Like they don't leave enough toilet paper, enough washcloths, enough, like they're not leaving enough supplies. So that can be like a negative. People really love when you have a great TV, great internet. For some reason, you know, people are on vacation. They want to chill. They want to watch their movies, Netflix. You should have a smart TV. I think that that's really important. Spend some money on that. Although I never did understand that in the beginning at the beach. I was like, why are you not on the beach walking around? And why are you not looking at the whales? And I was judgy about people that were watching movies, but then I was like, okay, fine, stormy, I get it. People want to stay inside. So I think it's just, you know, the comforts of what you would look for if you went somewhere and you didn't even have a suitcase. You know, what makes you happy when you walk into a place that they actually thought about ahead of time?
Mm-hmm. And one of the things you said is go stay in your own Airbnb before you start renting it out.
Yes.
And see what it doesn't have.
Yeah, I like to tell people to let their spouse or their partner or their friend pack their suitcase for them without you looking in it, right? Like I'm such a control freak. I want to know every single thing in my suitcase and I've overthought it all. I say, let somebody else pack for you and then you go to your Airbnb and see what happens. See if you know what store to get to. Did you let your guests know that? Like there's so many things that you can do to make it amazing.
Yeah. So again, where do people find you? Where do people find your site?
Yeah. So on AirBNBandyou.com. So it's AirBNBandu.com. The other thing I was going to tell you is there's a new host kit. So like, for example, let's say that you get there and you don't have a suitcase because it got lost by the airlines. Where are your guests going to go find that local store? Because if you don't have a guest book that has all this information in it, then they're bothering you. And now your second job becomes you babysitting somebody's airline issues. And you don't want that. You want to solve it so that they check in and never talk to you and you never have to talk to them. Like, that's it. It should be super easy. So we also offer a guest book to our clients. We've got a guest book, like a new host starter kit where I give them information on how to get all of the stuff to make them happy when they get there, just in case they did get luggage that was lost. But yes, we have that on the Airbnb and You website as well.
Awesome. What other tools are out there for them?
So let's see, we have guest book. You're going to have a policy manual. It's required for most Airbnbs, usually by the city. They require that you have that. We've got that as well. We have checklists for cleaning that are resources out there for people. People sometimes are like, I don't know how to create a cleaning checklist for somebody. Like, what do you mean? How do you not know to put the stick in the window? Like, you would just get so mad, like, at people, and it's like, just put it in the checklist. So we have checklists. We have literally anything to get the person started that should be able to answer the questions ahead of time and make sure that you have a great hosting experience.
Are there any signs that you put up in there just to make sure that it's like, okay, I just want to make sure this is right in front of your face so you don't have to call me?
You mean like the part of the sign that says, don't smoke your bong in my Airbnb? So I do a couple signs, and yes, it is something that I will give away. So inside the new host kit, like, we have like remove your shoes. The policies actually do say no smoking, but you have to get very detailed with people that are staying in your place, because they're like, well, you said no smoking, that means cigarettes. No, sir, it meant no smoking anything that comes out of, like, no, even if your ears, I don't care, no smoking. So I definitely, like, we have a little sign that has policies, and we want to make sure that people understand that. There's also something that you can do to help your cleaners, because you don't want people leaving stuff behind. And so I also create signs that are helpful for the guest and for the cleaners, so that there are nothing left behind, because we don't ship things afterwards. Unless it's like really good, like jewelry and stuff, then we of course have made an exception, but we try not to like ship off lunch boxes, which we've had that request before. So we get them to go through the unit. So I have signs around that. But yeah, there's some really cool signs that are in part of our starter packs.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And we were in an Airbnb in Nashville, and I will tell you, just having the giant pack of makeup wipes in both bathrooms. And then he also had dark washcloths with a little tiny sign that said, ladies, please, if you don't use the makeup wipes, please use the dark washcloth to take off your makeup. And I thought, okay, that's really smart. Obviously he's lost some white washcloths, right?
Yeah.
That somebody took their makeup and like destroyed the washcloths.
Yeah. You just got to chuck them afterwards, right? Because it's true. You are throwing away so much stuff as an Airbnb host, because you absolutely cannot have anything that's frayed, that looks old, that might have one tiny speck of a spot on it. You just can't do it.
Are there any colors that you like on sheets and towels?
White, 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 white. You need a cap full of bleach in everything. Like, I am a big proponent of knowing exactly what I'm looking at. So let's say that you do have a black washcloth that's used for makeup. That's fine. But even if it goes through the washing machine, I don't know if it's stained because I can't see it. So I would definitely, if I was a guest inside an Airbnb, I'd definitely be using disposables. I would never use a black washcloth. It grosses me out. I don't know. So for me, I don't feel like color is a good indication of cleanliness. And I think that guests feel that way too, because I think that guests really want that hotel experience now. And if you're not providing the hotel experience, and you just don't go to hotels with colored sheets, it's not a thing. You go to hotels, they have white sheets, and the reason why is because we're bleaching them. We're putting a cap full of bleach and whatever else in there. But I do think it has to be 100% sanitary in order for you to get 5 stars in cleanliness.
Okay, that was worth me doing the interview, because I'm like in Marshall's the other day. What kind of towels should I buy for my Airbnb? Because there's all these different colors, right?
Yeah.
White.
Why people want to feel a hotel level of an experience.
Mm-hmm. All
Yeah.
right. Any last parting thoughts? Now, what we didn't touch on, Leann, is any of your awesome leadership and all your career stuff, which is amazing. And gosh, we had some fun times coaching together back in 14 and 15
For sure.
before I bailed on you.
Well, yeah, no, you didn't. You look at where everybody is, right? You were an amazing coach to me at that time, and definitely gave me my ideas to get into the next part of my career. And what I would tell people out there is constantly stay in that curiosity. Like our MREI book in Keller Williams is amazing. Pick up the blue book. It is a very elementary investment book that they should research. Stay in coaching, because your coach can talk you through things. But what I know about coaches like yourself, Shannon, is that if you don't have the answer, you're looking for it for someone. And I didn't know those questions to ask back then, because mostly I was like, how do I grow my business? Right. So I think people need to stay in that curiosity place where they're like, there's so much to know in this world, constantly be digging out there.
That's why I like to do these interviews, by the way. We've done so many interviews in GSD, and I'm a sponge. So I love to do the interviews a lot, because I'm like, ooh, what am I going to learn today? Like, now I know to buy white.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. I just got off the phone with Melanie Kinnaman, and she blew my head too. It's like, okay, well, I talked to Stephanie Evelo last week, and she just replaced herself 5 years ago with a CEO, and the CEOs doubled their business from 35 million to 70 million. And it's like, oh my God, I'm learning so many great things. And I, like you've been in this business for 24, 25 years. And it's like, I think I'm learning more now than I did 15 years ago.
Me too. I think that it's a shift for sure, as you start realizing how small the world is and how little we knew. And then, yeah, I feel the same way. I'm like, my gosh, how did I not know that? I definitely feel like I'm on a slope right now that's going up. So it's exciting.
I told my kids, this is my decade.
I like it. That's really good.
Yeah. The last 2 decades I gave to them.
Mm-hmm. I like
all
that.
about me.
That's awesome. I'm going to start saying that, actually.
Fun and investing and taking all the knowledge that we've helped other people build a ton of wealth, right? How many people have, like, I'm talking to you realtors right now watching this. How many people have you helped build wealth for and not yourself? Yeah. And to me, this is a way for us to have the inside track of the knowledge that we know, that we've helped so many other people with, build wealth for ourselves and take care of ourselves first. And I think it was you, I'm not sure it was you or Catherine, that talked about always look at an investment possibility for you first before listing it or taking it to market.
Yeah, right? I mean, it depends on where you are in your life, though. And I think where a lot of people have this big gap is they're like, well, I don't have the money. And they actually might have the money. There might be some creative financing. There might be some things like that. But I don't think that we look at the possibilities and we're not talking about it, because there's an uncomfortability around talking about our own personal money. And I know that 10 years ago, or I think you and I were coaching 8 years ago is when Cody connected you and I. And I think, back then, I certainly didn't want to say, well, I have a bill for my kids' private school and my daughter's in college still, and I have this problem and this, like financially, I don't think that I can make that happen. I would never have probably divulged that, not to you, not to anybody. And I was probably closest with you as my coach. But we've got to normalize the feeling of, why don't you tell me every day where your money's going, what you're doing? Let's talk about your finances. Because also, here's the other thing. Most people are not comfortable with numbers. We know that. It's like, why are you afraid to do math? It's not embarrassing. A lot of people don't understand it. But when you've evolved, like you have, Shannon, into a coaching role, or I've evolved into becoming an investor, I can look back at my old self and know exactly what the problem was. I didn't know how to ask the questions. I was too embarrassed to say, well, I'm really living, month to month, trying to get my kids through school and pay my bills and live in my house, where I was sitting on, hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity that I could have utilized. I just didn't know how to utilize it.
Right.
And so it took me being brave to talk about, I really want this. Here's all my, dirty laundry. Here's what I spend money on. My kids' football costumes, whatever, uniforms. I guess they're not costumes. Yesterday was Halloween. So like football uniforms, like I needed to talk about it. So yes, you should look at it as your own personal, but if you haven't gone to the first step, which is really allowing somebody to talk to you about your finances, normalize that, get comfortable with it.
Yeah. Fix your credit, take care of yourself like you do your clients.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities. And, as I look at these Airbnb opportunities and do the math and re-engineer it backwards, I mean, they're all like 4 to 5 year payoffs.
Yeah.
Well, okay, go buy 10 properties in the next 5 years.
Yeah. The gal that I just recently connected with, she has multiple properties that have a zero balance on them. She's not carrying a mortgage on them. And she said, I want to learn how to do what I'm doing with my investors. And I'm like, you have paid off properties, you have leverage. And she's like, well, see, I don't know how to talk about my numbers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, your net worth is near $1 million. And she's not telling a single family member. She's not talking to her kids about it. And she doesn't know how to get to the next property, because what she does is she was buying them and she was paying them down, but she's never leveraged any of those properties. And there's no right or wrong. It's just that she was asking, how do these people go and buy, 400 or 500 doors, and they're buying it they leverage, right? They're utilizing somebody else's money to get to the next level. And so I just think it's still very interesting. Even people who are highly successful selling 50 plus units a year are still not talking about their money. I'm like, talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Leann. I'm excited. I would love for you guys to write questions as we post this video in here, and definitely check out Leann's class. She's got tons of information out there. I mean, I literally had a hand cramp like bad when you were teaching. I was like, yes, yes, yes. This is like the best info ever, and stuff I've never heard of. Right? Like, now I'm not an Airbnb specialist. However, I've really been diving into it because I have one that I'm rehabbing right now, just trying to learn everything.
Yeah.
And you gave such practical information that blew my head. I was like, God, everybody needs to know this before they go dive into this business.
Yeah.
Like, that's worth it. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. My pleasure. And if they sign up, I'm bringing them the Airbnb and you chapstick. Okay. I'm doing it. You can have a chapstick too.
I love it. Thank you, Leann Harris.
Right.
We will be talking to you soon.
Thank you.